There we go. So good morning, everyone on LinkedIn, YouTube, wherever you are watching this, and welcome to Talk About TV. And I'm here today with Lorraine Woodward. And once a month, actually, we're going to be coming together to talk about one thing that the world does not yet know about accessibility, especially in outdoor hospitality. So welcome, Lorraine. Thank you so much for being here today with me.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you.
So let's just get right into this. I know that we are working together on a very exciting thing that we're releasing, which is an accommodation, actually, an accessible retreat, which is what we're calling it, the accessible retreat. And we're not here to like pitch that today, but because of that, we've been talking more, and I'm looking forward to learning so much more from you. And one of the things that's top of mind for me that maybe you could speak to today is the language around accessibility. So, I've been corrected a few times by you. It's like you don't know what you don't know. So I'm so eager and excited to learn more from you. And the whole idea is inclusivity, right? And to
Absolutely.
make, because the outdoors, as Randy is often heard saying, the outdoors is for all of us. And
Mhm.
our intention is to create that bridge and make it more inclusive. So if we're shutting people out with language barrier, that's not helpful.
No.
So could you speak to some of the maybe the most common things that you hear that you are like, wait a minute, that's not how we speak about this.
Right. And language is important for all of us and how we present ourselves. And I think the number one Becoming Rentable, we're a listing platform of accessible short-term rentals. And as I go and look at other booking platforms and I look at what filters or features they have, a lot of times I see the word handicap accessible. And I'm like, no. And it's like, well, why not say handicapped accessible? And it's because we've changed our language about identifying somebody with a disability. A handicap actually means cap in hand. So back in the 40s and 50s, people with disabilities were identified as handicapped. We were beggars, and so we've now changed that to what we call people first language. And so we identify that person first. Like, I'm Lorraine Woodward. I'm CEO of Becoming Rentable. I'm a wife, a mother. Yellow is my favorite color, and I have muscular dystrophy. It's a part of who I am. And so
Yes.
so that's one of the things that we look at in identifying somebody is who are you? And I am not a handicapped person, but I am a person with a disability. Does that make sense?
That makes complete sense. As you were speaking, all of these terms were running through my head. I mean, I think we've all experienced that in one way or another, where you're just kind of like you contract, you kind of shut down. You're like, why are you putting me in this box, right? And people don't really take the time to think about it. So what about the term accessible rather than like everybody's used to ADA or,
Oh boy,
that's
boy,
kind of a
that's a whole
big
nother show.
box.
Come on.
Yeah, yeah,
It's interesting because you're absolutely right. We see the acronym of ADA all over the place. But
yeah.
in reality, it was created, it's a law 34 years ago, and it doesn't apply to everything. And so it's understanding, where does the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, what does it stand for? What does it support? And in the area of short-term rental, it does not apply. There's a small gray area of question. But again, as we look at this accessible retreat in our short-term rental space and our outdoor hospitality communities, it is not an ADA accessible retreat. because the ADA was created at a time before the short-term rental industry was created, probably at a time before outdoor hospitality was even really promoted
Yeah.
and moving forward. And so it is important to understand, because when in doubt, people are like, I don't know what to say, but I think it's disability, so it's ADA. That bicycle, that microwave, it's ADA accessible. My favorite is, and I mean, a reporter live asked me about how does it feel to be wheelchair bound, and so I had to address that live on TV and say, you know what? I am not duct taped to my wheelchair. I happen to use my wheelchair, but I'm not bound to it. And
I
it's
love that
again,
you, I
it
am
is
not duct
funny, but
taped.
again, people
It's funny
think
your
I,
response, I mean, the reason I'm laughing is that I love your bold response to that because it's like you're just cutting through the craziness and sorry, I did interrupt you, but helping people to see that there's power in your words and in your language. So please go on. So you responded by, wait a minute, I'm not duct taped to my wheelchair. What are
whatever
you
color
talking
duct
about?
tape it is, I use it, but not to bound me to my wheelchair. But you
Yeah,
know, it's a hard concept. I think because I have muscular dystrophy, I use my wheelchair each and every day. But you know what? I can stand. I can
yeah,
stand. Now, I can't stand as much as I used to. And sometimes I not only stand, but could walk to the kitchen. I could walk to the bathroom. Now, I'm weaker today than I used to be, and I don't do that. But I think that I have surprised people like, you know, Heavenly Father, I've been healed because they see me standing. It's like, what are you doing standing? You know, you're in a wheelchair. And it's like,
oh
exactly, I am in a
wow,
wheelchair. And
wow.
people think they have this idea, again, perception, that if you're in a wheelchair, you never get out of the wheelchair. And that is not the case. I mean, we transfer to the toilet, we transfer to a bed, we stand up, we exercise. There's a lot of times when we are out of our chair. And that does seem to startle people, you know, when they see that you're not using that. It's like, wait a minute, are you creating a facade? Because I just saw you stand and you walk to the kitchen. And it's like, yes, I did. And I'm so grateful that I could do that. But that's as far as I can walk, is those 10 feet, that 30 feet. And so, again, it's so much understanding. In fact, today I was responding to some emails about the accessible retreat. And I probably had 4 to 5 people I responded to, and they said, well, will this unit be accessible to me in an electric wheelchair? Somebody else asked, would it be accessible for somebody in a bariatric wheelchair, a heavier wheelchair? Somebody else asked me, is it only for manual wheelchairs? So even that is like, well, what do you mean by accessible? You know, is it, how wide is it going to be for my wheelchair? Can I get through? Can my wheelchair is 400 pounds? Can my 400-pound wheelchair, you know, withstand the flooring of that? So there's even confusion among, you know, those of us that use a wheelchair. So the clearer that we can make through language, photographs, discussions, the easier it is to, you know, create that awareness and education.
Yes, and I'm so glad you mentioned that. That was going to be my next question, actually, was even the term accessibility, because we're all seeing from our own perspective, as you said, our own vantage point and our own limitations, whatever those happen to be for everyone. So what is accessible to me is totally different than to this person, that person, and all of those variables, the weight of your wheelchair. I mean, you just don't think about all of that. And this is really why we're doing this. So at the last Wednesday of every month, Lorraine has very graciously agreed to come on live. And I would really encourage people to get involved here and ask questions and
Mhm.
comment. I mean, I'm so curious about the feedback and what are you out there experiencing in outdoor hospitality? What do you know? What do you not know? What do you wonder about? What have you been up against so that we can help you? And Lorraine is offering her time here to help educate all of us so that we can better serve. And the idea is, let's all get outside. Let's have this opportunity to have different experiences without all of the barriers, right? Like, and enjoyment and to be nurtured in all the things that nature provides us. So when we agreed on this name, the accessible retreat, what is in your mind when you think of that term? What does accessible mean to you?
Well, it is very interesting because again, even among our disability community, there's question. Again, I was very busy this morning responding to emails. Another
That's
email, a
good.
couple of them that I tell you that came through today was why, when you look at and hear the word accessible, why is it always about wheelchairs? Why can't you think
Yeah.
about walkers and crutches, this person writes to me. And at Becoming Rentable and Evolve Lodging with the accessible retreat, we've identified mobility accessible. And so that
Yes.
we're really broadening it. And we broaden it to include wheelchairs, walkers, crutches, and canes. But when we say accessible retreat, again, people with wheelchairs are thinking, oh, it's about me. It's about me in my wheelchair. But somebody else is going, why is it about the wheelchair? And visually, we think about the wheelchair when we think about disability because we have the handicap parking sign. See, handicap parking sign. That's what we call
Yeah,
it.
it's
And so
still
I
that.
know, and I just said it,
It
and
is still that. Yeah,
it
yeah.
is,
And you
yeah. So
just said it.
I know it.
We're
I
all indoctrinated with language is so insidious, isn't it? And it really does. I mean, this is a commercial, everybody, for be aware of your words. We're putting spells on people with our words, truly. I mean, the power of language and we're just kind of hypnotized by it. We're indoctrinated. We just hear it and hear it. So stop saying that. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. But it's so, I hear more people identify it as universal access. And I think it's
I
going to take us
like
a
that.
long time to get away from that
Huh.
handicap parking and say, our community has universal access. Again, what does universal access mean? So it is understanding, and breaking down these words to share what the meaning is. But
Hmm.
again, from a visual standpoint, we see this symbol of somebody in a wheelchair in a parking space on a sign in Braille. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
even though the Braille is for somebody with a visual impairment or blind, but they still are getting direction because it identifies that handicap
Hmm.
accessibility. So,
If it is accessible for a wheelchair, though, and here's an assumption again, right? Because
mhm,
we go to assumptions and
mhm.
that it is going to also be accessible for a walker or if you have a cane and I'm thinking most specifically right now about parking because I've heard from you and from so many others that you show up at a place and it's accessible or ADA or whatever. And then it's all gravel with hills and like it's impossible. It's not accessible.
Right.
So there are a lot of basic things that I think if it is going to work for a wheelchair, should work for a walker or a cane. Would you agree? Or am
Again,
I missing it
no, I
there
mean, to a
somewhere?
degree, it actually is the reverse of what you may think. So yes,
Oh,
Arch. Now here's where I'm
interesting.
going. It may not methodically come out correctly, but so for a wheelchair, again, the pad in which the parking spot has identified as accessible is accessible, but beyond that space, is it dirt, gravel, sand, or hard surface? So we look at that. But for me, when we talk about the mobility accessible, it's broadening the scope of who can use that space. So, for example, I am not able to access accessibility if there is a 4-inch curb or a 6-inch step. And so, if that is not identified, then somebody, you go there and it is accessible for somebody that uses a walker. They can get up that 4-inch step, that 4 inch. So it's important to share that so that people that, like a number of my friends who are in a manual chair and athletes, they can pop over that 4-inch or 6-inch curb cut or step. And it's important because for me, it's a red flag to say, nope, that's not accessible for me. But my mother-in-law who uses a walker, she can navigate that space. So she can go to that hairdresser over there that she wants to go to because she has that information. It really is too about the information you share. Just like when we go out to eat, we want to know, okay, I'm glucose intolerant. Is there a way, or yeah, glucose intolerant, is there a
Yeah.
way, is there,
You mean to
other,
say, gluten?
yes,
Yes.
yes. So the information that we can, yeah, gluten free, you're right. Anyway, the information that we share is what's critical. So we
Yeah.
know if we can access it, if we can eat it, if we can hear it, see it.
Right.
I
And
kind of
here we
botched that
are.
whole one up, but you get the point, I hope.
Yeah. Oh, no, 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 that was very clear. And I know we're running out of time quickly today because we got started a little bit late, but this is a very important topic, and I'm just going to throw this out to the audience. Please share with us what have you learned, and what will you change? How can you take this information? How might you implement it? And how does it make you think differently? Like, I mean, it's so significant, just the awareness around something. But then you have to take that and use it and talk about it and learn more about it. And it can be awkward and uncomfortable because we really don't know, and you don't want to offend people. And like the woman who asked you that, she probably had really good intentions, but it doesn't come across that way, right? It's like, don't put that limitation on me, right? And
Mhm.
so, but we learn through making mistakes and through having the conversations, and that's what I really hope to open this up to for everyone. Like, let's open up the conversation and become more aware. um okay, so thank you, Lorraine. Is there anything you want to close on today?
Um, I encourage people to also identify what they would like to learn.
Yeah.
Is there a question that you have if it is related to language or anything in outdoor hospitality of, how can we move forward in creating a more accessible community to, for our more accessible accessibility for our community.
Yes, let's have conversations.
Yeah,
And that means ask questions. Like, we're really looking, like, I know this is overkill, but we really do want you all to engage. So we're not just talking, randomly, and it really does become meaningful and helpful. And we're here to change the world, you guys, to disrupt this experiential outdoor hospitality and create experiences that are wonderful for everyone. And let's do that, right?
absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. God bless you. Have a beautiful day. And I appreciate you so much, Lorraine. Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
here.